My name is Lon Chaney. I am the president and CEO of Chaney Entertainment. I am the great-grandson of Lon Chaney and the grandson of Lon Chaney Jr. I formed Chaney Entertainment in 1992. I started a campaign for United States Postal Service stamps, which led to contracts with Universal and licensing, and I started developing all these different projects with the hope of finishing my grandfather's book in his honor. And it's been quite a journey since. My great-grandfather, Lon Chaney, was born of deaf-mute parents. He didn't speak till he was 4 years old. He grew up in a deaf community. His first language was sign, not verbal. He kind of refused to talk, and he had this amazing ability to mimic people. He did it since a child. That's how he communicated. He would copy other people, their mannerisms, their walk. That was his form of expression. He said, I used to store it like a filing cabinet in my brain. I was trying to develop a character. I'd go back in. Oh, I remember that character. Once he knew what he was trying to create, then it went to the makeup. The makeup for him was a lot easier. He had been traveling the country for 10 years and ended up in LA over on Broadway. Probably was on stage over 1,000 times. In a lot of the interviews, he would talk about how he got to become this makeup artist, develop this craft. Hard work, he said, experimentation. All the old vaudevillians, they all did their own makeup, and you had to be a different character sometimes every single night. By the time my great-grandparents' marriage ended, he couldn't get a job on stage. He had to find a new career, which turned to film. All of his old stage buddies were in this new business of silent films, and he jumped right into it. On stage, he was a comedian and a dancer. He thought he would be a comedian in film until he saw himself, and he said I was horrible. Things that I did on stage were easy. I could make anybody laugh with a joke or a mime. He didn't find that in film because it was done so much differently that he had to start learning a new craft all over again. But like anything else he took on, he did it with zest and he wanted to make it perfect. But you have to remember, silent films were done in 1 to 2 weeks. They were cranking them out just one after another. And he even expressed one time that we knew we were a part of something much grander. We didn't know what it was, and it was all experimentation at that time. Everybody was so excited about just doing this new medium. It was just a challenge for him, and he found his niche very early on that he liked to play characters. He was always a character actor. He wasn't a lead. He always was playing these characters. A lot of Lon's movies, it was about sympathetic characters. You felt sorry for him. I think that's a Chaney trait, to make the audience feel the emotions. And he always said, you know, early film, there was always a controversy with the directors and producers whether you wanted a type or you wanted an actor. Being on stage for 10 years, he was truly an actor. An actor can be anybody. You know, a type can't be because they just can't act. Pictures would suffer because of that. He always felt that the picture was the most important thing and that he delivered on what he promised. To him, being on time, doing your job, and not delaying the project was extremely important to him. Hunchback came out in 1923. His first real credit where he got noticed for his amazing performance was a film called The Miracle Man. Propelled him where people recognized him as an actor. And that was after 2 years after he left Universal. He went freelance because he was a prestigious worker. Lon had to work every day. Being off for a week probably felt like a year to him. It was William Hart, actually, that recognized him from an earlier movie. It was called Hell Morgan's Girl. And he wanted him to play a part opposite him. But he always credits William Hart, for one, being very respected, and that he gave him his first big break. Once people noticed him, and he did Oliver Twist, and he did Treasure Island, everybody started knowing him as all these characters. He was a preeminent character actor of his day. He said, I'm one of the few actors that can walk down the street. Nobody knew who I was. I was always a character. Kind of self-conscious, so he could do his characters and nobody would bother him. He enjoyed that. He just took it serious, and he knew that the Hunchback was going to be big. They knew nobody else could do it but him, and it was a huge success, and that just propelled him forward for the rest of his career. He definitely wanted to do Quasimodo. It was an ambition of his. He was so excited, but he was really scared. How am I going to pull this out? I got to figure out how to make this character. He would read the book, he would read the description over and over and over again. He worked hard and he suffered in that movie. It took a lot longer than they thought. His makeup that he devised, not only on his face, but for his body, like strapping himself, hunch on his back that weighed tremendous, and climbing. He did almost all of his own stunts. He came home one day after learning he got the Phantom. He just went to work. First he started on the mouth and the teeth, went to the nose, some of the tricks that he was using. It was all experimental. Did damage up inside of his nose, heal for a few days and come up with another idea. Because my grandfather actually threw him a tip on how he could tip that nose up, and he thought, oh, that's really good. till he did it, and it ended up he bled all over the place. He always sought out professionals. He had a wig maker, Zahn, very well-known wig maker in Hollywood. All of his teeth he did with the dentist. He knew what he wanted, how he could create the teeth that the back and flip his thing, and then he would color it all and hide anything. He had his own booth at the back of Max Factor, and anytime any new makeup came in, he was the first one in there to go to the back room and experiment with it. And he also did screen tests, see how it would register and how he looked on film. A lot of lighting, shading, tricks that he just didn't want to reveal to anybody, because he said, this is my art. Why would I tell everybody what it is? I don't want anybody to know what it is. This is what makes me different and why they seek me out. To him, it was an art. Not only art, he was a magician. Why would you give your tricks away as a magician? But he knew the impact it would have. In that scene in particular, one of the greatest in film history. And that makeup box, that was his magic box where all those thousands and thousands of faces came out of. He had pins, he had hair, he had teeth, he had glasses, he had putties, he had glue, spirit gum, you name it. It was in there. He would pull it out and he'd make a new face out of every one of them. And he loved it. It was a challenge to him. It wasn't just making the character, it was being the character and look realistic on film. That was crucial. He would go to whatever lengths necessary to achieve that character. He was very well aware of his circumstances and the impact these makeups could have on people. That magic box, an inspiration to so many makeup artists out there. Lon kind of, even though he was a star, was also an everyday person because of the life that he had lived already, you know, long before his stardom. He was almost 40 years old by the time he became a star. His personality wasn't going to change. One of his quotes, I always thought it was really interesting. You learn all these things while you're going along, like, you know, your makeups and acting and all these things. But the one commonality that you usually see in a lot of big stars, they went hungry. Usually hunger is what makes an artist. I think this graphic novel of The Phantom with Legendary is going to be amazing for one. Fans and people that know these characters and these films, that's great, but most of the newer generation, when you say Phantom of the Opera, they're going to think of Andrew Lloyd Webber. And I see this as an opportunity to reintroduce to new generations, fill some of the old generations of a new version of the Phantom with Lon as its star. I think he would be very pleased with the life that the Phantom has had. I think he was always looking to evolve no matter where he was in his career, and he knew that time would go on. But I also think he was very astute of knowing where he stood in history and film. He was creating something that would last. As an artist creates a painting, he was creating art visually on the screen. I'm so pleased that Robert approached me. A lot of people can do things, Phantom, it can be public domain, but he knew. People recognized the Phantom was Lon Chaney. There is that one iconic character. He came to me. I appreciate that so much that you want to do it right. He did it right, and Legendary is doing it right, and I'm thankful for it.